Greetings to all my brothers and sisters far and wide. It's Paramount Chief Tonic of the Washata Moon Nation. Just here to bring a brief view of all the scenarios and incidents and stuff that took place in the past, including a court case with driver's license and all these false allegations, which, how I know the law, it's actually a contract, and I did not give voluntary consent to a contract. And in statute laws, whether you're a citizen or indigenous, you have the right to contract with the state. So if you say no contract and you're being forced into contract, it's called coercion, right? So I've been kidnapped by the state in 2018, the 29th of November, and was wrongfully placed under arrest and put into a psychiatric institution because of the knowledge and the information, and because they couldn't have jurisdiction, they couldn't have a fair hearing in the court case to actually win any proceedings going on between us in these traffic citation, so-called violation.
So what eventually happened to that case? Was the case thrown out? Did you win the case?
The case, one of the cases had thrown out, the other one, they had tried to use a coercion method to tell me that I must accept this, and they will free me up based on certain criteria. But I state to the fact that you cannot find a man who did not do a contract with you. First of all, I'm indigenous, and the Constitution states that indigenous people is not subject to your tax, and you're refusing to obey the laws.
So when you say the Constitution, are you referring to the St.
St.
Vincent
and
and
Grenadines
Grenadines Constitution?
Section 13, subsection 4.
Okay. So, but I have to ask this question. If you're not subjected to any type of taxes, it may not be a legal question, but do you think it is fair for you to be benefiting from the state resources and others are paying taxes and you're not paying taxes?
First of all, the state is benefiting off of our island. There's a treaty for them to be here. And through the treaty, they're supposed to comply, obey, and respect the indigenous people. We are not on their land, they're on our land. So it's not fair for them to use these statute laws infiltrate us in our own island using the mercenary forces, which is referred to police, and try to extort us. That's extortion. Okay? They have no jurisdiction whatsoever. They're supposed to be paying us a percentage to occupy our island. So they're not, that is supposed to be actually in reverse. It's not fair to them to be on our island, to have their corporate businesses and not paying a percentage for whatever industry. First of all, an example, the cocoa industry, they need to pay us for all these industry. They need to pay us to occupy our land. This is our island. It doesn't belong to the corporate state. A colonial enterprise is a foreign entity that goes by the name of a corporate government, such as St. Vincent and Grenadines, Grenada, Barbados, USA, etc. These are called colonial government. They're not under any lawful standing. And one point I'm gonna draw, which I can prove the evidence to, is that in 2020, the 20th of February, colonial government expired. This knowledge would not be taught to you. What you see that going on with is another act of fraud, because the government was told to remove themselves and only keep the security forces, such as the uniformed police, to keep the peace with the citizens, and do not invade the governments and do not tax even the citizens. This is a order that was sent out. What you see going on with this planned scamdemic called Corona is an act to rewrite the slave code, which they will not get through with. So in other words, who take the vaccine is actually rewriting themselves into slavery. You're under a slave contract by the vaccine. That's why you have a vaccine certificate, because you're gone back into slavery. And this is their way of trying to rewrite the slave contract, because it's ended in 2020. The queen was removed. So when they're holding the procedure telling you that the crown and crown land, there's no crown.
Interesting, but if you're correct, how is it? Okay, let me restate it. Are there any other countries in the world that are using the statement that you just made and the information that you gave to actually take back their country?
Of course, they have the rights to. They have the rights to take back the country lawfully because the country does not belong to them. The slave contract ended. There is no trust laws that prohibit them, give them full ownership to these land. These are fake laws, are fake documents that they create under the corporation to steal the land and the resources from the indigenous people. And how they manage to get away with this is by inoculating the people, brainwashing the people, and having them sign their rights over through a birth certificate, which is called a contract, and there was no disclosure in the contract. So if your mom had known by signing a birth certificate to you, she was making you a slave, a corporate entity, which is called a statutory creature. And these would be expression that I could express for you, but there would be a later date where we would give it breakdown, which would break the laws down to prove to you that this thing is null and void.
Okay, and the laws that you refer to, where could those laws be found?
It's called a maritime admiralty law, which they refer to it as civil law, civil procedure. Civil procedure is a Roman cult thing. If you look up the word civil, it means Roman cult law. If you look up the word Roman cult law, it goes back maritime admiralty law. If you look up the registration of all these corporations, it states maritime law corporation. If you look up the United Nations Assembly and all the member states, it states that St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a maritime law corporation, is now a signatory to the UN. We have all these evidence.
Okay, and the movement that you're part of, I'm assuming it's a movement that extends beyond the borders of St. Vincent.
Yes, it's right now we are going global, and nationally there is the Washatamo Queen in America, which is our bloodline. So we are all Americans, right? This is part of America. This is called the Americas, and the motherland is America, so to speak. So we are the indigenous, what they would refer to in America as Chickasaw, Cowfoot, Cherokee, and different names they would call us, and Blackfoot. So these would be the names that they would give to our people in the form of restructuring the indigenous community. So we would have various attempts at different times when these different Portuguese, French, and British, and the Dutch came in. They would each create a different name, and they would try to recolonize. And you know what colonizers done? They would take away your culture, your history, your language, and steal. But we, as indigenous descendants, have it in our blood, so it cannot be erased. So all we do is reactivate it. As we go into this Aquarius time, there is knowledge being unfolded, there is documentation that was hidden and now being released. And as I said, the Queen was removed, the Pope was removed, and all of them. And the assets has been seized to a level. And they've been told, and Ralph and them know this, but they will not expose these information to the public because it will raise alarm and it will cause a revolution. Because even the Black Squad and the other police, they are an illegal occupational force. They should only have the uniformed police to keep the peace and to watchman the postal service, because a corporation can only run through the postmaster service.
So, based on what you have said, I am assuming that at some point you all will be trying to reclaim.
We already reclaiming a big portion of everything, but lands, everything. But we are we're setting up a global indigenous government. We have a global constitution for the indigenous people. And yes, we are going to set the move where we're going to reclaim back everything, including full aspect of full indigenous government, and shifting the corporate government out. One of the reasons why it still is the way it is because of the citizens' ignorance. And ignorance is a word mean you don't know the truth. And because of they not knowing the truth and the procedure that's going on, and being servants, which we call passive obedient slaves, that just obey the so-called statutes that the state dictates for them. That is called grievous harm. Because in the Constitution, if the state politicians, which is called fiduciary officers, put out a statute that causes grievous harm, it violates the rights of the citizens in the Constitution. But being that the citizens don't know these things, they do not stand up for their rights. And the temple bar, so-called lawyers, do not teach them the truth. Okay, because they sign secrecy, and the secrecy is never you teach the people the truth. The truth is like putting weapons into the hand. So what we learn is actually how to reverse the slave contract that was issued through the birth certificate and make it null and void. And for instance, whether you do a paperwork or you don't do a paperwork, right? It is in the fiduciary officers such as the magistrate or the judge that once you hit in the court, whether they have you there for whatever citation, whatever false allegation they bring you there for, the only thing that could bind you to Allah is that if you damage someone or the property. So if I have not interfered with anyone, damage the property, they have no jurisdiction to bring a statutory charge against us. They are nowhere in jurisdiction to tell us to pay for driver's license, to pay for carry a firearm, to pay for any form of statutory laws. It is called an illegal occupation. It is a violation. It is called extortion. And they know this. It's in the trust laws of the state. It's in the constitution of the state. The constitution states that one who is indigenous is not subject to statutory laws. It didn't use the words indigenous, but it states the words people who is not citizens. Okay?
But the argument could be made that once you're born in St. Vincent, for example.
No, but that's just the corporation name. I'm born in Uromi. So we have to first distinguish the tricks that is used to pull you under the straw. There is just a corporation called St. Vincent. The island is Uromi. Until you accept the scam that you in St. Vincent, then you're under the jurisdiction. I'm not in St. Vincent, I'm in Uromi. St. Vincent Corporation is illegally occupying my land.
So you mentioned, use the terminology straw or strawman.
Yes,
Could you
strawman.
explain what a strawman is?
A strawman is the all-capital fiction that was created through the corporation on the birth certificate to bring you as a statutory creature. Our corporate ward of the state. These are all the different definitions that you're known as. That's why when you enter into court, you need a legal representation such as a lawyer, because you're known as a dead. You're not known as alive. So this is why you have to go into a box, because the box is in the port. It's called a port, and you need now it's become a bill of lading. So you are referred to as a bill of lading.
So how does one, if you're in the system, how does one get out of the system? In other words, how does one get rid of the strawman?
What they would do as a lawful procedure, which we advise everybody, is to denounce the citizenship. Don't go through the state for that, but do your own documentation. And to make the procedure lawful, you can get state notary along with one of your peers can notarize it, because the original way of notary is using your thumbprint, right thumbprint, with an autograph and date on it, and that's original notary. And then you could still have a state notary on it, so you could get the apostolic seal, because the apostolic seal gives it authentication, originality, and makes it diplomatic for you, so the state cannot violate no more. Third of all, there's a thing called the Postmaster General Authority. If you know how to exercise that, it is higher than the Prime Minister, the Magistrate, the Judge, the Governor General, every one of them. Once that is exercised in a document, if they violate that, then it goes to the Universal Postal Service, which can sanction the state or charge them $1 million fine for violating the Postal Union Service laws. So if you know how to exercise these laws, you don't have to fight them. You can make the report to the Universal Postal Service. If for whatever reason you go into the court and the magistrate play ignorant and refuse to obey that particular law, he can not only be fined, but the state can be fined through the Universal Postal Corporation.
Okay, I want to thank you for your time. Is there anything you want to say in closing?
I just want to tell the people stop buying into the fake tactics that the state use to intimidate them with the coronavirus and many other statute laws that they would claim that is a law, because it's not a law. And legal do not mean lawful. Right? There's a procedure called lawful and a procedure called legal is within the statutory system. Legal do not mean it's lawful, and it does not bind you to anything. If anything violates your rights and does not protect you, you have the right to contest it and charge the state for an act of treason. Because I just want to say this other thing. In the Constitution, Section 48, the state and its representative cannot pass a law without the approval of the citizen. And many of times they've been passing laws down the road. Third of all, they cannot increase a tax, nor create a new tax. These are things that the people need to know so that they can start charging politicians for act of treason. They and the representative in the House of Parliament. It is all acts of fraud, and we need to step upon them.
Okay, in the last 5 seconds, if persons want to contact you?
They could find Tonic Man on Facebook, or they could contact me at 498-2142. As you need information, you need knowledge, I am willing to share this information, but people needs to stand up and start for a search for the right. But one other thing I gotta say before we close, in the act of these people who is vaccinated, you already sell yourself into a slave contract. We can't help you there.
Okay, thank you for your time, brother.
You're welcome, my
Okay.
brother.